Welcome students. Today we will talk about international regimes and the world order. And this is the second lecture on this topic. You may recall that in the first lecture on this topic, that is international regimes and the world order, I talked about what international regimes are, what is the meaning of international regimes, and what is their nature. And I also related some mainstream IR theories to international regimes, how IR theories perceive international regimes. Today, in this second lecture, we will try to focus on international regimes vis-a-vis the world order today. That is, how international regimes work in relation to the world order today. I will give examples of international regimes formed since the Second World War, and I will also come to our current world order, that is world order in the 21st century. So just when the Second World War was nearing its end, the winning combination, they met in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, USA, in July 1944 to discuss the emerging international monetary regime. About 730 delegates from 44 allied nations, they met in a conference and they signed the Bretton Woods Agreement. The Bretton Woods Agreement, it created one international monetary regime known as the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, and International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, IBRD. So these two regimes were created for controlling or regulating the behavior of the states as far as their currencies are concerned. Actually, it tried to regulate the currencies of these nations. So these IMF and IBRD, they are examples of international regimes and how they tried to shape the world order after the Second World War. In line with the Bretton Woods Agreement, another agreement came to force in 1947. Actually, it was known as the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, GATT, popularly known as the GATT. GATT also tried to provide for a trade regime, international trade regime, and it tried to actually put some barriers and facilitate trade. That means it tried to facilitate trade as also to put some barriers on the behavior of the nations as far as global trade is concerned. So it regulated tariffs, it regulated other types of licensing and duties to provide or to ease international trade. So for a very long time, the Bretton Woods systems operated and it controlled international monetary system. We should say that international monetary, international investment and international trade system. And for a long time, the Bretton Woods system continued, the GATT continued, till the Uruguay round. The GATT paved ways slowly for the World Trade Organization. In 1993, in the Uruguay round of talks, the GATT members, they decided to do away with GATT, that is General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, and the World Bank was subsequently formed. Today, in the world order, the World Bank is, again, it is an organization, unlike the GATT, which was a treaty. Now, you may recall that in my first lecture I said that international regimes may or may not be organizations. So international regimes actually may come up through treaties like the GATT or earlier the Bretton Woods system, or it may also formulate an organization like the WTO today, World Trade Organization. And World Trade Organization today is one organization which actually is an organization of developing and developed states. More and more developing states are joining the WTO in order to facilitate their entry into the global market. WTO is there to liberalize trade, trade among countries of the world. Now, the point is, it does not only try to liberalize trade, it also, like the GATT earlier, it also tries to put some control over trade in the world order. So we have already got many examples from the Bretton Woods system to the GATT to the WTO today. WTO is an organization. Likewise, there are several other international regimes. I gave examples from in my first lecture in the security area. Thus far, we have talked in the fiscal area. That is Bretton Woods system, the GATT, the WTO. They are all examples from the financial world, from the fiscal area. Now, if we look at the security area of the world order today, we will find several such international regimes, several such arrangements to control the security relations among nations. I talked about IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency. I talked about the NPT, the CTBT in my first lecture, the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Again, it is a treaty among nation states, and more than 100 nation states have signed this treaty, NPT, and later on CTBT, to control the proliferation of nuclear weapons. Similarly, the CWC, the Chemicals Weapons Convention, or the BWC, Biological Weapons Convention, these are also treaties among nation states. Nation states have come forward to sign these treaties in order to control, to regulate the production, the export or import of nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, and biological weapons. So, as far as nuclear weapons are concerned, NPT or CTBT are the two international regimes to control and regulate nuclear weapons, nuclear proliferation. And CWC is another international regime to control the production or trade of chemical weapons. BWC, Biological Weapons Convention, is another treaty to control biological weapons in the world. Similarly, in every sphere we find such arrangements. These arrangements are actually created by the nation states, but they are actually governance without governments, we may say. Governance without governments. International regimes, this is a very explicit, you may say, definition of international regimes. How governance without governments take place? So, in case of IAEA, in case of CTBT, the provisions, or in case of NPT, the provisions are more or less binding upon nation states without any particular government directive. So, unlike national governments, here in the international regimes, nations, sovereign nations, they come together to formulate certain laws, certain rules, certain regulations in order to control different spheres of a nation's activities. It may be fiscal area, financial sphere, it may be security area, it may be environment, it may be health issues, it may be educational issues. Several such agreements are there which formed international regimes. Now, I will give example from a recent event in international politics. Now, the Security Council of the UNO, it provided that Iraq should be controlled as far as the production of nuclear and chemical weapons were concerned. And similarly, nation states, other nation states who under the directive of the Security Council, who decided that yes, security operations inspection should be carried out in Iraq, they came forward to help such security inspection to be carried out in Iraq. This is one of the latest examples of how one international regime, or we may say the Security Council of the UNO, how it became effective in controlling the behavior of a nation state as far as security is concerned. So therefore, international regimes, they are always very active vis-a-vis the world order. I gave examples from different areas of international regimes, from the financial area, the Bretton Woods system, the GATT, and today's World Trade Organization, from the security area, that is the IAEA, the NPT, the CTBT, the CWC, the BWC, and I also gave example from one UN organization, that is the Security Council, how its its decisions became a mandate for Iraq. Now, there are many scholars who believe that international regimes may pave ways for the establishment of global democracy. Today, we talk about how global democracy is possible through the functions of international regimes. That is, how through the work of international regimes, global democracy is possible. Scholars like Samhat, SAMHAT, they believe that global democracy gets more and more strengthened through the operations of international regimes. They believe that international regimes, they facilitate public policy decisions. According to Samhat, the very first condition of any democracy, and more so about global democracy, is to facilitate public policy decisions. That means democracy means decisions through exchange of views, and globally this is possible through international regimes where several nation states, they come together, they exchange their views, and they come to a decision, and they take a decision, they sign treaties to liberalize, to control, say, international trade or international security. So therefore, according to Samhat, Keohane and others, Keohane and others, public policy decisions are facilitated through international regimes. I repeat, when nation states come together, when they discuss, when they exchange views, and finally when they sign treaties to form international regimes, a bigger platform is achieved to exchange views, to facilitate democratic thoughts. Moreover, according to Samhat, global citizenship is increasingly getting facilitated, it's increasingly getting strengthened through international regimes. That is, without global citizenship, global democracy is not possible. International regimes actually help the member states, even the individuals of the policy makers, the decision makers, to become global citizens through exchange or through the platforms in several global regimes through their work, through their activities in international regimes, they become global citizens. So that is another way of strengthening global democracy. And the third condition, according to Samhat, that they also act as, international regimes also act as transformative agents. That is, from they always try to sharpen our democratic institutions through transformation from one regime to another, we may say from good to better, to the best, and they also transform socialistic views among member states. That is what Samhat believes, that in a global platform, when members meet, when they discuss, when they exchange views, a kind of a parity, a kind of an equality is achieved. For example, he gives example from WTO, where several developing countries are now increasingly airing their voices at the WTO, which was initially thought to be controlled by major economies like USA, Japan, Germany, etc., and the European powers. But increasingly at the WTO, now several developing countries like China, India, Brazil, and many others, South Africa, they are also airing their views, and they are getting their views established through negotiation, through discussion, and sometimes, of course, through demands. So a kind of an egalitarian platform is achieved through the deliberations of international regimes. That is what Samhat believes, that it also paves for global democracy. So according to him, global democracy is strengthened through international regimes by three ways. These three ways are, of course, public policy, facilitating public policy decisions, strengthening global citizenship, and strengthening the transformative character of international regimes. So that way, international regimes, according to many scholars, they actually pave ways for global democracy. Although this view is not above criticism, many others, especially third world scholars, they believe that international regimes are still controlled by the big powers. The hegemonic theory, I talked about the hegemonic theory in my first lecture. The hegemonic stability theory believes that the international regimes are created more or less by a hegemonic power who actually gives strength to international regimes. So as I said, the view that international regimes strengthen global democracy is not above criticism. The point is, whose democracy is it actually? Is it the democracy as perceived by the USA or the European powers? Or is it the democracy of, say, the developing countries? Is it the democracy of India or Brazil? So there is the contradiction. I mean, whose notion of democracy actually prevails? When we talk about global democracy being facilitated through international regimes, whose democracy is actually getting if I may say so, the upper hand? Is it the American model of democracy, or say the Indian model of democracy? So there may be differences. There are differences on this view. But this is true, that international regimes facilitate more and more interactions among nations. International regimes facilitate more and more demand sharing among nations. International regimes actually pave ways for more and more consultation, negotiation, which are essential in the world order today. As we know, today's global order is very much interdependent. No nation can survive exclusively on its own in this world order. In simple word, no nation can survive in isolation. So we are all dependent on the other. Even the major powers, the stronger powers like the USA, it is also dependent on the global market. So that way, more and more dependence is the order of the day. In the current global world, in the current world order, states are very much dependent, and therefore more and more interaction among the states is the need of the hour. So through international regimes, the nation states, they come together, they exchange views, they negotiate, they consult each other. That is surely one strength of international regimes. And the current world order cannot be perceived without the existence of international regimes. Think of the global fiscal order without the existence of WTO. Think of the global security system without the existence of IAEA. These are almost impossible. So in different spheres of our lives, the international regimes, they are present, and they are very active in the global order, and they are helping the world order to work, to remain active, and they are helping the world order to get strengthened. Therefore, since the Second World War, international regimes are very active in international system. The examples from the Bretton Woods system, the GATT, the World Bank, and recent examples of Security Council being very active in Iraq as a part of an international regime, and also IAEA's inspection in Iraq. These are examples of how international regimes, they are actively helping the world order to survive, to get strengthened. And according to many, global democracy is also being strengthened through the existence of international regimes, because international regimes help public policy to be facilitated. It helps global citizenship, world citizenship to be strengthened, and it also helps transformation of the global order from good to better to the best. Thank you.